The brand new mould-breaking Radio Stoke was already out of date when it started in 1968. The BBC, who had admittedly just launched Radio 1, was, for the most part, a pretty conservative institution. Sex may have been invented in 1963, but there was no way it was coming to Cheapside. Listening to those early days, you sometimes get the feeling that the BBC was an elderly Victorian gentleman finding himself at Woodstock, fingers in ears, singing Land of Hope and Glory.
This is BBC Radio Stoke-on-Trent. The time is 5 o'clock on Thursday, March the 14th, 1968. And this is Harold Williams introducing your new home service from your new station, Radio Stoke-on-Trent, broadcasting on 94.9 VHF and rediffusion Channel C.
Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side, yeah.
It's lovely to think that the song is older than the announcement. The late 60s was a time for youth, but it was also a time that had come too soon for Radio Stoke. Now, if you're sitting comfortably, we're going to tell you a story about a radio station and how it came to realise that boys and girls are actually people.
What you riding here for, here for, here for? What you riding here for, hey, hi, ho? I'm riding here to marry, to marry, to marry. I'm riding here to marry, hey, hi, ho. Marry one of us's, us's, us's. Marry one of us's, hey, hi, ho. You're too fat and ugly, ugly, ugly. You're too fat and ugly, hey, hi, ho.
In 1968, unsurprisingly, the BBC's attitude would seem to have been that children should be seen and not heard, which, when you're a radio station, means that they don't exist at all. The new service was fine with the idea of children and even had some fun ideas to keep the little mites entertained.
Last week, I described life and conditions of work in the potteries at the beginning of the century. For the majority of people, life was a constant struggle to find work and avoid the consequences of unemployment and poverty. But even work offered little real...
Fun! Horrible histories it ain't. In fact, the station had a large output of educational programming, all useful for moulding the minds of young potteries people.
C'est à vous.
Bonjour les enfants. Bonjour madame.
Bonjour monsieur et bonjour les enfants.
Aujourd'hui, nous avons une nouvelle chanson pour vous.
Ah oui? Quel est le nom de la chanson, monsieur?
À la ferme.
Et qui va chanter?
Pierre et moi.
Et les enfants aussi?
Oui, et les enfants aussi.
Eh bien, chantez, messieurs.
The French lessons were particularly successful and great preparation for a life working at the Michelin, or Michelin, as we call it here in Stoke. A perfect fit for the stated aims.
The School Broadcasting Council for the United Kingdom vests responsibility for programming in local education panels. Local needs are assessed and programmes directed at them. Listening
to the early recordings, you can't help but get the feeling that the BBC's understanding of young people came from a brief flick through the pages of the Beano. Children, it seemed, were either little angels or little so-and-sos, Lord Snooty or Dennis the Menace, or Minnie the Minx. Airtime was reserved for the worthy children, doing worthy things.
Riding along on the crest of the wave and the sun is in the sky. All arise on the distant horizon, the town hall passes by. We'll do the hailing while all the ships are out sailing. They're riding along on the crest of the wave and the world is ours.
Now, I am not not suggesting that Screamline and its ilk didn't deserve a place on air, or that the youngsters taking part weren't worthy. It's just, in those early days, the BBC wore its responsibilities firmly on its sleeve. Young minds were to be shaped, and young people were rarely deemed deserving of a voice.
More from Spotlight on Schools Week. There are literally thousands of things to talk about, and I know that it's going to be difficult to choose the right things. I'm going to start in this classroom, which is one of the upper classrooms, speaking to the class teacher. I'm speaking to
Mrs. Sandywell.
Can I say that if you live in this part of the world, you would be making a great mistake not to come into the school today. I'm not kidding when I say that it's packed from end to end. I'm walking down the corridor now. It's packed from end to end with things that show the sorts of links that this school has developed with industry in its immediate area.
That's wonderful. But did you notice what was missing? Yes, a visit to a primary school and nary a child to be heard. Song, it seems, just like with the Cubs, was an exception, safe and controlled. You knew what you were getting.
Someone's on the thread, whoever can it be? I feel shocked and nervous, the girl coming to me. Julie lit the candle, look at the bed she looks. Get out, you fool, it's only a pair of boots. Lazy, baby, gypsy, queen, elephant, monkey, tangerine. Matchbox, 1, 2, 3. I call Sharon into me. Not because she's dirty, not because she's clean, not because her mother's very queen.
I'm sure many of you will have recognised that. It may even have been you. The only songs I really remember from school are Join on the End If You Want to Play Tick, a recruiting song that generally lasted the whole of break and rarely, if ever, ended in a game of tick, and of course the classic, Milk, Milk, Lemonade, Round the Corner Chocolate's Made, which is self-explanatory. The point is that the station only gave us some of the story, for fear of offending, or worse, encouraging another world of feral, dangerous children. Arthur Berry catches the mood.
And 14-year-old lad-mad wenches new to their charms, who wobble past on platform heels linking arms, pursued by gangs of hooligans with little bitten fingernails, who row back at the wind, richy-titchy, butter and crud, who live on a diet of chewing gum and blood.
Faced with giving airtime to hooligans who spent their evenings killing each other's kestrels, Radio Stoke played it safe. And although they did have more young voices, there was always a feeling of control. These Biddulph youngsters are bright and articulate, but you do get the feeling they've been steered towards their conclusions about Pink Floyd.
I've actually got the record, but I only bought it because I thought it was something different. I didn't think it was anything to do with us.
I bought the record too because, well, mainly I bought it for the beat, and I thought that they just sort of have repetitive words, and this one was sort of more of a story, telling a story, or like giving an argument against something, instead of just playing the tune, not really concentrating on the words.
Just think about the words, they're rather inaccurate, because you can't survive without any education. How are you going to learn to do anything if you haven't got education?
Auntie then, for all her well-meaning inclusiveness, felt less Mary Poppins and more Agatha Trunchbull. Little by little, however, Radio Stoke tried to get down with the kids.
Youth Club Classics with Mary Fox.
Even the education programmes actually began to let the youngsters ask their own questions.
At your service, we can help you any time of any day. Doing jobs to make life easy. At your service is what we say.
Hello, and before we start today's programme, I want you to listen to two noises. Here's noise number 1. Right, that's noise number 1, and here's noise number 2. Right, those are two noises that belong to things to do with emergencies, a fire engine and an ambulance. And at the end of today's programme, I'll tell you which belongs to which. Well, first off today, we're going to find out about firemen with...
Anne-Marie, Michael, Martin,
And the first fireman question comes from Anne-Marie.
How many fires do you put out in a day?
Over an average, we do about 3 in every 24 hours.
As the institution relaxed, it realised that young people were a valuable resource and that engagement with them could provide good programming. They didn't go as far as a series on shoplifting or a discussion on how best to spit on cars from Holden Bridge, but they did make occasional visits to that other world of childhood.
Play hide and seek, we play that up our street or down the hills. Play things going across the road, you know.
What do you do there? Could you tell me how the game is played?
Well, if 2 people or more people are playing, you have 2 sides. One runs curb and then one runs wall. One goes up to the curb and back and then back up to the wall and back. And the other one goes the opposite way. That's sort of that game.
Oh, I fancy a game right now. Of course, childhood is a wonderful prism for nostalgia, and there were no shortage of reminiscences from adults.
Now, I don't remember, as we know today, the delivery of newspapers. And where boys had particular streets of their own, and they would dash after these streets and shouting, "Sentinel!" And the people would come out to the doors, waiting for them, you see. And even the Sunday papers, and people used to go around with hand carts, trucks, delivering the Sunday papers.
As a little lad, I was always playing down the backs. And somewhere inside me, I've been playing down the backs ever since. Backs are the backs of streets. Only terrace houses or old tunnel backs have them. And all the backs have little water closets and coal holes. And all the way down to the end of the street, you can see these little coal holes and lavatories disappearing into the distance. Some of these alleys are cobbles and some have been covered in asphalt, but many are just flattened and uneven earth. But outside most folks' back gates, you'll find that they are generally either put a bit of concrete or tarmac or built a surface out of the ages of ashes spread day after day for years and years. To be a child and reared in these was to be born lucky, and I don't know any better way of beginning to discover the big world outside your own back gate than to join one of the gangs of scabby-kneed kids that lived and hunted down these backs. I have sat among these and cut a wooden dagger with a penknife and felt a tuppenny silver cowboy's gun in my pocket and felt as big as Buck Jones when I was no bigger than an ash bin.
And eventually, the station listened to the wise words of Arnold Bennett, famous Stoke-on-Trent author and omelette.
The parents exist to teach the child, but also they must learn what the child has to teach them. And the child has a very great deal to teach them.
Even if it is that sexual stereotyping starts early.
There must be a difference between a man and a woman. There must be, you only have to look at the difference. But, like people say, men are stronger than women physically, and I suppose they are. And I think that it is nice when a man gestures to a woman to open the door before she goes in, because I think that's very nice and gentlemanly. It is gentlemanly. Like yeah, I really like that when people do that.
I mean, can you just see a lady coming up to a man and say, "Here you are, I've opened the door for me, would you like to come through?"
Maybe that's why these children living in Bentley in the 70s thought the prospect of female footballers was somewhat futuristic.
Do you believe that girls should have woodwork and boys football, things like that in school?
I suppose it's the girls ought to have a chance of doing woodwork. Not so much football, but I think they ought to have a chance of doing woodwork.
Woodwork and things like that, it isn't really women's work, is it? When they grow up, they don't do things like carpentry, things like that, and they won't play football or anything like that, so I think it's quite pointless.
Well, I think women should have a chance to be engineers and things like that, go in the RAF and work on planes if they want to do that. And I wouldn't mind if they had a girls' football team. Well, it could be a mixed one, that'd be good.
It'd be queer with a girl in Manchester Football Club, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I just can't imagine Stoke team centre forward Mandy. It just isn't right, is it? Just doesn't sound right.
It might be thinking in 20 years' time. They might be right.
And so it proved. As the eminently wise Whitney Houston once said, "I believe that children are our future." So it's no surprise that those self-same children speculated about the world to come.
Well, let's see how things have changed by asking what you'll expect to use for your housework when you get married. This is what some girls at Carmountside and Sandon Junior High School had to say.
Like to live in a bungalow. There's no upstairs to clean, no stairs and that. I hope to have a vacuum cleaner and a washing machine and a spin dryer and all those sort of things. And I hope to have a sink unit, underneath the sink to keep the things in. Well, I'd like to have what my sister's got. It's like a box that you can get electricity in, and you put it on a dirty thing and it cleans it and shines it as well.
Well, I should like a deep freeze and an ordinary fridge, the stove and washing machine and a spin dryer, saves wringing out the clothes. And then you get all sorts of little gadgets like toast machines, electric iron.
Yes, you'll have all these gadgets, and probably a new house which is easy to clean.
Gender stereotyping aside, they were right. I mean, what home now doesn't have a box with electricity in it? When you put a dirty thing in it, then it comes out clean and shiny. Or even one of those toast machines. As these young minds developed, they turned their thoughts to the role of the mother and the mother's concerns.
Some children just come home and don't tell their mum and things like that and go out to play and don't realise how worried the mothers get. And
this is where you get vandals. The mothers don't care. Mother goes out to work, comes back, the vandals have had the tea, something like jam on bread, and then go out again. It's true. And then they start breaking windows.
Sometimes you don't appreciate your mother, like you go out to play football, you come back, you only say, oh Mum, aren't the tea ready? They might be busy, something like that.
This is it. I started to click it when I was about 10. And 9 years old, Mum do this, Mum do that with you. Then at 10 I suddenly realised, how many times does she have to do the washing and washing up every night, washing up for breakfast and I used to think, crikey Nita, you better start getting up and doing something.
That child was 10. My daughter is 18 and seems perfectly happy to live in a room that looks like a helicopter's landed in a charity shop. Anyway, gender is a major preoccupation with many youngsters and the particular problems they have following girls' or boys' hobbies, like fighting.
Boys, they like to be free. They don't like to be cooped up indoors like the girls, doing gymnastics and hockey and things like that. We like to be outside playing football or just generally mucking about, having toy fights or rolling about in mud. But you just can't do that with the dinner ladies or on the yard, because there's no mud, and if you do wrestle about, you'll get your head banged in on the concrete.
Well, I don't agree with fighting because it's dangerous.
A toy fight isn't dangerous, not if you're careful. But you girls, you're just too soft. You're weak. You're no good at fighting.
Us girls don't bother fighting because we know that it's sensible not to fight. And anyway, if you start fighting, there's always somebody else who could get hurt.
Ah, so wise. Freed from the early days' restraints, our junior listeners wax lyrical about the things that concern them, like finance, inflation and pay scales.
Well, I get 10p a week. On Saturdays I usually spend it on pop at the cricket field. I think that I should get about 15 pence.
I get 50 pence a week. I spend it on, well, I usually save it up because I'm getting near my holidays now.
I get 10 pence myself. I spend that on sweets and my mum spends the rest on me.
Well, I get 25 pence a week.
I get 40 pence a week.
Good heavens, that's a lot more than these two. Is this keeping pace with inflation? We hear a lot about that.
Yes, I think it is.
These busy proto-Stokies had worries all of their own, not least how exactly to manage their day.
What do you do in your spare time? Well, there's not many games about all over the place. We've got a lot of fields, and we go on the field and just play football and that, really. And we can't play in the street because, people park the cars outside and we can't get much room in case you kick a ball through the window and that. And so we just play in the fields, really.
Can't always play football, though. You could play drafts, chess, Monopoly.
Yeah, but indoor games are boring, especially if there's just a tiny bit of light outside. You can be out playing or just knocking about, but it's no good during the winter. You can't get out after school because you've used up all the daylight hours, and when you do get in, there's nobody to play games with you.
In contrast, life is also difficult under a dictatorial regime.
When I get home, I hardly have any friends to play with.
because they're all older than me. My mum doesn't approve of me playing with people older than me because of their different ways. So what actually happens is I just have to stay in and watch television and things like that.
You have to watch out for different ways in a world that wants you to grow up too quickly.
Some people might say that dancing is not a good thing for people of our age, 12, 13. 15 and 16-year-olds could cope in a disco, but not children of our age. If we do go to a disco, we want it for people of our own age, our own size, and no big people.
I think that they shouldn't have big people in. I think they should have age groups in the different times of the day, say at the weekends. I've had some experience of disco, not much, but just a little bit. And there's always been some nice dancers there, but they just haven't got the room to dance, because all these people, when they're jumping around, they're not dancing, they're just throwing themselves around and making themselves look a fool.
Moving into the world of young adulthood brought the sensible, community-minded caution of the risk-averse young Stokies.
On Wednesdays or Thursdays I go like of a disco, but that's pretty boring because it's got all punks in and that.
Yeah, well, I've never been to a disco, so I don't know what it's like, but I've heard off my friends that there's always a fight at night between the different kinds of music, and it's just boring. The very last thing, you'll get people who are irritated because they haven't been able to dance, they've been hit and bullied, and they haven't been able to get a drink, and they're really irritated, so you just can't get a word in edgeways with them to tell them to stop it. When they start ripping the place up, they'll kick a table over, and you can tell them stop and you'll get a fistful of fivers.
Well, when they smash windows and like that, it's ruined and you can't have one again.
That lad knew an awful lot for someone who'd never been to a disco. These early trailblazers gave us so much to think about and so much pleasure that the floodgates were flung wide and the city's young really became part of the station.
Let's beat Pete!
Let's beat Pete! Let's beat Pete! Let's beat Pete! Let's beat Pete! Good morning, Bishop's Lonsdale!
Good morning, Mr. Akers!
Are we ready to beat Pete?
Yeah!
Yeah! Come on!
Hello, my name's Charlie. I'm 9 years old and I like animals.
Hello, my name's Amber and I'm 10 years old and I like animals too.
Hi, my name's Rory. I'm 10 years old and I like football on my Xbox.
Hi, my name's Emily. I'm 9 years old and I like playing with my dog Molly.
Oh, Molly.
Hi, my name is Jackson. I am 10 years old and my favourite thing to do is cycling.
Good man, good man. Are we ready for these questions then?
Yeah!
Jackson.
What was the name of the first monkey in space?
I think it was called Jackson. He thinks it was called Jackson.
You loser.
What was the actual answer?
Albert.
We beat Pete! We beat Pete! We beat Pete!
They took to the airwaves in phone-ins, quizzes, special programmes, and they made use of the station to pass on messages of love and thanks.
We're from Corriesland Primary School!
My dad's good at looking after when my mum's at work. Nearly every Sunday morning I get up at 6 o'clock, get ready and we go fishing together.
My daddy usually puts me to bed when I'm tired.
My dad had a tarantula and it's just died, so on Father's Day we're thinking of getting him a new tarantula and we're going to get him a card.
My daddy takes care of everybody.
First call is Simon Elms. Hello, Simon.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm not too bad.
Oh, that sounds ominous. What's the matter with you?
I've got flu.
You've got flu? That's a good way to get off school, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look, Simon, what number do you want?
150, please.
150. Who would you like that played for, Si?
My grandma, she's not very well.
Oh, dear. Where's your grandma?
She's in bed at the moment.
Where?
Down the throne.
Where's that?
Rees Avenue.
Right. Do you want to say hello to your grandma?
Hello.
Go on, then, and say, here's record 150.
Here's record 150.
These modern media-savvy youngsters seem a breed apart from the playgrounds of my youth. But childhood is still a magical place, full of wonder, where anything is possible. Beware the Kidsgrove Bucket.
There's an old lady named Mrs. Spite, and she says that Kidsgrove Bucket was a robot, and that her daughter saw her on the bridge, and she ran home, and the lady says that she's very scared of it, and she keeps her back door locked, and she tells everybody to knock on the window and look through the window before she lets them in.
When the lady was walking when she was young, she dropped a stick in the castle tunnel, and it fell in the water, and all these bubbles kept rising from the water.
Oh, what's that story about the old lady's head?
Oh, this boat was going through the tunnel, and they were trying to kidnap her or something, and they sort of hit her back of her neck, and her head fell off and fell in the water, and she fell in with it after it.
People say that she carries it under her arm all the time, and people say that she's a ghost, and everybody's scared of her.
Mrs. Spite said that she's dead. If she came into her house, she'd dive under the covers because she's so scared. There's a blue hut by the canal, and they're supposed to say that it comes out there at 12 o'clock. It's kind of as big as that. It's a blue hut, and they say that she comes out of there at about 12 o'clock at night.
In the private, mysterious world of the child, there'll always be room for tales such as the Kidsgrove Boggart. In the confusing race for adulthood, young people haven't changed so much. It's the station that's changed, learnt from them and put them at the heart of programming.
Ash Green Primary Academy in Trentham. This is No Fuss 11 Plus. Yay!
Hey you can play wherever you are, at home, at work or in the car. No fuss, 11 plus, give it a go while you're on the bus. Have a chat, confer, discuss, think you got the answer. Brain box, pick up the phone and call us. 01782 208 008.
Hello Louise, I'm Hattie. I love food. I like to say hello to my dog Lottie Dottie.
Aww.
Here's my no fuss.
And while the girls we heard there are clearly from a new generation, catch them in the playground and you'll realise that nothing much has changed.
Can it be? I feel shocky nervous, the Julie coming to me. Julie lit the candle, look at the bed she lit. Get out you fool, it's only a pair of boots. Lazy, baby, gypsy, queen.